Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Witch on the Holy Night! We are going to be continuing the cliffhanger. You may be asking, where the frick is Hollow Ataraxia? That will be the next episode for realsies, I promise. I just wanted to see what happened next in Witch, to be honest with you. Just a little bit more. But because the cliffhanger kind of annoyed me, if I'm being kind of honest. I hope everyone's doing well, so why don't we just go ahead and just jump into it. We already read that, yeah. So, it didn't disappear after one video. the record would be like, what, 3? So we'll see. Its form with hands clasped resembled that of a building tulip. The bearing of this artificial flower reflected in the cloudy mirror of the ticket attendant's office next to the gate. So we're getting currently clapped by Aoko, and hopefully, due to mere ex machina, we can escape. Next to it stood a display board corroded by years upon years of rust. No, number of visitors today, 2. Number of today. The board of the graffiti crudely scrawled atop of one of the words. It was replaced with slurs. Deaths. That's... yeah, that's, was that the death of 86? The records board had long ago fallen into disrepair. After taking a full 10 seconds to digest what it was looking at, it made its own revision. Number of visitors today, 3. Number of deaths today, 1. What the hell? That's creepy. After appending this number with an index finger, she smiled like a flower. Then she began to walk towards the source of the sound. It had been 10 minutes since this rhapsody had begun to echo from the House of Mirrors. The amusement park's entrance returned to as it was before, soulless. Okay, this is some horror. Ghosts? Magical spirits stuck here? In the end, it didn't even matter. Unisoldier had been the luckiest man alive. There's no way he should have been able to escape, so he did. The question, however, was how much of this was by design, and how much was sheer coincidence. Even Aoko had made all the arrangements, had no answer. Indeed, there were only 3 things she could say. It was taking longer than expected. He was putting up more resistance than she had anticipated, and that choosing the House of Mirrors had been a mistake. She had really screwed the pooch on this one, absolutely. Like, that's just amateurish. The location itself was an excellent choice, as the House of Mirrors was perfect as a hunting ground, but seeing her own incompetence reflected in the mirrors was beginning to grate on her. Damn. I don't know why, but that voice clip was great. Oh! The moment Aoko's right arm began to glow, Sojiro made a beeline for the staircase in front of him. A strobing sense of blue flashes lit the room behind him. Damn, that looks like it's about to hit him in the ass. The hunter calmly followed her prey, and the prey desperately ran for his life up the stairs. That's pretty badass, not gonna lie. It's like loading gun bullets in the chamber. In stark contrast to Sojiro's frenzied escape, Aoko walked briskly up the stairs. She elected not to run after her prey in order to maintain a set distance. As she lacked confidence in her accuracy, she'd be the most challenged as if Sojiro bull rushed her and went down fighting. Oh my god, some of these shots are just so well done. Like, this VN is just beautiful. Like, I can't believe that VNs can look this good sometimes. But at a distance of 30 or so feet, he posed no threat. By the time her prey drew near, she could fire 10 shots and hit with at least 4 of them. Their positioning just a moment ago hadn't been ideal. At this distance, in a space this open, there was a chance, however small, that it could turn into a fist fight if he flanked and charged her. But that's just not a Sojiro moment, you know? Currently, Aoko's best weapon was the bullets from her right arm. If she was going to capitalize on that advantage, it was in her best interest not to close the gap between them. Range. There was a good time to approach. It was only after her prey had become exhausted and had lost the will to continue. Would she pierce his leg? shoot him in the back? Or perhaps would he just give up after losing himself in the labyrinth? The hunt would end when her target sustained some sort of injury and became unable to run. On Sojiro's end, he could barely bite back on screaming as he bolted through the maze. Even running in a straight line had become difficult, much less searching for an exit. Quarter stretched out far before him, more so than mirrors blocking the path it made it seem. Panicked, he made a turn to the right. Damn, dude, my man's getting more brain damage than Shiro. In heaven's feel. Clutching his head in his right arm, Sojiro led with his left, groping through the air to see whether a wall was there or not. He dove down the hall to the left, narrowly dodging the bullets targeting his leg. Urged on by the sound of approaching footsteps, he ran without thinking. That last one was close. A hair closer would have meant his life. He caught the odor of burnt hair from the back of his neck. He was very lucky, or perhaps very unlucky. If he were actually lucky, he would not be in the situation in the first place. He's just like, oh man, I'm so glad I showed up to the right place last episode. The second floor of the House of Mirrors was structured like a giant spiral. It wound left, starting from the outside wall. Eventually it would lead to a dead end. The more he tried to escape, the more cornered he would become, as though he were trapped in a twisted guillotine. His stifled screams threatened to leak out his complaints. No matter what he did, he was going to be killed. All of his struggling merely served to prolong the inevitable. Oh my god, yet he ran. No matter how many mirrored walls he rammed himself into, he ran. Even after crashing so hard that his forehead bled and he saw stars, he ran. Pain shot through him at every turn. The more frantically he ran, the more intensively he smashed into the invisible walls. His body began to understand this rule and begged him to not to run anymore. Yeah, dude, my lungs would have collapsed, like, not even getting to the second floor, and I would have been dead. His breath was already ragged after sprinting a couple hundred feet. No matter how he thought about it, this is not normal. This is too crazy. This is all just a bad joke. If he turned around now, she would apologize to him for taking it too far. It's just a prank, man. His mind had gone blank. As his body continued to slam into the mirrors again and again, his feet slowed as they began to believe that perhaps it really was all a joke. But then he felt a chill, a touch of death upon his neck. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Sojiro knew this kind of terrible chill far too well. For since he had arrived in the city, he had come face to face with more than one or two near-death experiences. For someone who did not understand city life, his present predicament was not unlike when he experienced the traffic on the streets or the commuter rush on the station platform. He was far from an innocent babe unable to comprehend life or fear. Rather, everything he had ever known became irrelevant when he was flung into a completely different cultural sphere. It's kind of interesting how I could see Aoko and Sojiro being two sides of the same coin. Being thrust into different worlds that they don't know about, and being completely ignorant and forced to adapt. Because Aoko had to take responsibility at such a late age to become a mage and surpass her grandfather, I believe, is what she said. And because of that, her skill isn't exactly up to snuff. And while she has talent in the ability to present oneself, like she has the lack of emotion, the ability and will to set things out like a mage would, like the I'm gonna go kill the person that I know because it's what I have to do to clear my tracks kind of deal. It's obvious that she might have been a lot more innocent. And Sojiro is in this, I love the twisted buildings to show that like warped new world for him. It's a simple metaphor, but it really works as a visual storytelling device while you're reading. I really like it. Even society's promises of safety, something urbanites took for granted, were threats unknown. So he was used to this already. Though, if he were to be honest, he was dissatisfied with some things. Things superfluous to necessity, this world was overflowing with valueless things, and they were all dangerous in some way. Even the everyday necessities sold at the convenience store were, as far as he was concerned, amazing tools. Civilization had raised the standard of living so high that it had numbed humanity's sense of danger. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, like 95% of human beings don't even know how to do most things to survive on their own. Like, I bet you most people that enjoy, like, weeb shit would not be able to survive on their own. I'm not saying all, but, like, just an overwhelming majority. The city's constant pursuit of wealth and convenience was a poison to a country boy like Sojiro. They did not have that capacity to accept these conveniences. That it was possible for such convenience to easily and suddenly be misused and cause unintended accidents had always made him anxious. Why? He had to wonder why he was even here. How ironic. It took the real threat of death to finally make him realize. Like a divine revelation when he'd failed to understand it till now. He'd always had to expect the unexpected. Near-death experiences were more common than one might think. To begin with, safety was something that came at a price. Being alive meant that the opposite was always lurking around the corner. It was just like a streetlight at night. When the sun rose, its illumination would naturally disappear. Another barrage of strange projectiles whizzed mercilessly by him. He recalled in the back of his mind the charred remains of someone at the hands of that blue flame 2 nights prior. Somehow this situation reminded him of a horse being led by a dangling carrot. For now, he lifted his head and continued to run through the labyrinth. For what purpose? Though he knew the pain in his chest was very real, he felt disconnected from it. The night sky visible through the skylight was a muddy ultramarine, no longer resembling the one he knew. He managed to calm himself. Sojiro began to laugh in despair, as though something rather precious had been broken. What an interesting perspective that this near-death experience has given him, being separated from his own world and his own sense of self has completely broken him in accepting everything had become meaningless anyway. Yeah, like accepting just life. Even so, his legs somehow made their way forward to the sight of a reflection in the mirror. The survival instinct is still intact. Like a game of cat and mouse, Sojiro fled through the labyrinth of mirrors. Then after 4 minutes, that strangely unreal tension ended. The 9th shot of blue light hit inches away from him. It exploded the moment it made impact, launching Sojiro into the opposite wall. Rebound attack. Of all the fire he had taken thus far, the shot indisputably brought him the closest to death. It's Jover. So now we gotta talk our way out of it, because I think Aoko still has a few shots left. Like, not many, but I think a few. Groaning, he collapsed to the floor. His back was on fire with pain. He was not bleeding, and I was lucky he could still even scream. Yet his body refused to move. Physically and mentally, he still had something to spare. Pain was not so bad that he couldn't get back up. It was just that there was a skylight above him, and he could glimpse the dark of the night sky beyond. The feeling that overcame him was a raw, selfish bout of grief. Oh, it was just so cruel. He'd have to stare at that for the remainder of whatever short life he had left. Sojiro's ragged breath slowed. For all intents and purposes, he had given up. This is so crazy to see a protagonist in a situation like this legitimately give up and have such a moment of crisis. It really adds a lot of dimensions to him, and it's really cool. He had given up from fleeing from the pursuing footsteps and perhaps even the root of all of his problems. Man, I don't know if he's dumb in a good way or just a good person or what I don't even know if you could call that a good person. I mean, we know he's a good person, but just who thinks like that? Who thinks like, man, at least it was her that got to kill me. Sojiro Shizuki felt things that in any other circumstance he would never feel. Incidentally, without exaggeration or embellishment, this was the only mistake he had ever made in his entire life. Staring vacantly into the sky night above, Sojiro listened as the footsteps drew nearer.
Give up?
It was the closest her voice had ever been to him. Perhaps feeling that he really had given up, she approached his collapsed form. In the dark, mirror-lined corridor, he could not make out her expression. Without a word, Sojiro raised his eyes to meet his murderer.
返事がないならそれでいいけど。調子狂うわ。普通どうして殺そうとするのかぐらい聞くものじゃない？
Of course he's gonna throw you off. He's literally thinking that it's at least it's you that's gonna kill him. Aoko spoke from within the shadows. I wonder if the moonlight is gonna be like, if he says something like, wow, you look so beautiful, that would really throw her off her game. His eyes widened in bewilderment. Now that she had mentioned it, he realized that would have been the obvious question to ask. No, it was quite simple. It's just that Shizuki has a different mind. He works a lot differently. That the normal thing to ask is like, why? He had more or less picked up on the fact that he was being killed for learning some secret, but it was human nature to want to know more.
そっか。それは、そうなるな。
A simple affirmation. His face was a mixture of resignation and a forlorn longing. He thought for a moment before.
でも言う必要はない。聞きたくないんだ。
Oh wow, that's raw. Like, damn. He responded in a mature, subdued voice. His response was clear, rather gallantly so.
そう。じゃ、殺すけど。死ぬの怖くないの？
怖いに決まってる。何より痛そうだ。
Yeah, obviously. His face turned wry as he objected, to which Aoko frowned. As nonchalant as he could be, he was honest about his feelings.
そりゃ怖いでしょ。私だって怖いと思うし。でも悪いわね。我慢して。
It's such a thing. You just need to deal with it.
人でなしと罵ってくれて結構よ。今の私は本当にその通りだから。そういった意味じゃあんたと同じ。普通の道徳がないのよ。だから、必要なら人も殺せる。
In that way, I'm just like you. I don't have what you would call normal morals. I guess they do. Shizuki does have a different set of morals, I guess, in terms of just how he thinks, but I feel like he's gonna have something very interesting to say to her. Sojiro's finger twitched in response to her indifferent tone, as if to say that, despite having given up on just about everything, his body could not let those words slide. Yeah, exactly.
人殺しなんて良くないぞ。
Yeah, it's like, come on. I feel like even with how Shizuki may be a little dumb at times, maybe dense, he knows most rights from wrong.
分かってるって言ってるでしょ。
Aoko raised her right hand. The light from the crest illuminated her face. It goes without saying that her expression was unchanged. She was not crying, nor was she smiling. She was a young woman who had excised her feelings. Deal with it. Was another thing Sojiro could not let slide. Sojiro could read on Aoko's face that she was not herself. She was in pain, to a degree he had never seen in her. Yeah, a mage bottling everything up inside of her. Where have we seen that before? Rin.
すまない。ちょっといいかな。
何？ここまで悲壮感を盛り上げておいて、やっぱり逃げるなんてのは却下よ。
unconsciously smiled at Aoko's ruthless counter and breathed a sigh of relief. He had misread the pain he saw on her face. This was the same Aoko. I guess he did. Never mind. Oh, wow. Sojiro laughed out loud in genuine joy, a laugh that most other people would have taken as an insult.
遺言でも聞いてあげようと思った私が甘かった。っていうか、今の小バカにした笑いがあんたの遺言ってことで OK？
いや、そうじゃなくて、あそこにいる人は青崎の友人なのか？
Oh shit. Either Spirit Ex Machina or Alice Ex Machina. Out of nowhere, Sojiro pointed behind Aoko.
はぁ？
Like, I feel like I love that face so much. Aoko's gonna be like, you really think I'm gonna look behind me? Like, do you have any idea the oldest trick in the book? Aoko thought that it must have been that old overused distraction technique. If this had been a Japanese comedy act, this would be the part where she gave him a whack with a paper fan. But after giving it a second thought, she realized Sojiro didn't have the capacity for understanding old or even new tricks.
あんた、何言って。
Perhaps his honest disposition had been to his benefit. Without thinking, Aoko gave into her curiosity and turned to gaze toward the direction which his finger was pointed. And there...
Oh, yeah, that's not creepy at all.
It was like a homunculus. Something that should not have been there in the maze. Something with a creaking wooden smile. It was the ominous, creepy, uncanny figure of a girl.
人形?
Ninkyo? It is a puppet. Wonder what, like, makes the difference between a homunculus puppet and a puppet. Unusual figure with 2 arms and 2 legs stood silently in the darkness. If only for a moment, its beauty, which was even apparent from afar, dulled the insanity of the current situation. Oh, that kid. Extendo! 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 The utterly unknown threat made Aoko freeze on the spot. Oh my god. I'm watching an episode of Digital Circus right now. Winning it didn't even occur to her. Humans possess intelligence and knowledge, but when confronted with the unknown, they failed to process what to do, and oh, this is perfect. I was just about to call, Sojiro Shiki, because I have Tsukihime on the brain, because I want to play that really bad. But Sojiro constantly encounters the unknown, so he's about to pull an epic gamer moment, and he's gonna try to save Aoko, and Aoko's gonna be like, oh my god, he's not a bad person after all. And then it's gonna be like, oh my god, I'm not gonna kill him. And then it's gonna be like, wait, what? What the fuck? And then it's gonna create conflict at, like, the mansion house, like, so did you kill him? No. Grabs the paper fan. No. No. Oh, it hit. Never mind.
Oh yeah, I was very wrong. I am not astute, as you can see.
The shriek escaped Aoko's mouth. The magical attack crossed the 30-foot gap in an instant. The arm of the girl who had appeared at the rear of the corridor was slender and quick. It extended to a near impossible length, striking Aoko from behind. Aoko crashed into the wall as she fought back in anguished whimper. The attacker retracted her arm. Ooh, this music's going crazy!
Aozaki!
Sojiro sprang to his feet. Oh my god, he's about to pop off. He darted to her side and used all the strength he could muster to get her to her feet. Ouch. He could not believe how light she was. In Sojiro's mind, Aoko was an extraordinary individual. He'd expected that if he were to ever touch her, it would be apparent she was far stronger than he. But in reality, she felt about as heavy as you'd expect a 100-pound girl to feel. Meanwhile, that thing continued to reel in its arm, as if it were some sort of mechanism. Having extended more than 30 feet from the elbow joint, it clanked as it returned to its previous shape and size.
大丈夫か?
やめてよ。わからないわ。なんでそんな顔できるの?
Heck, I literally just tried to kill you. Aoko tore her hand away from Sojiro's. Suddenly, she felt her knees buckle from under her. The Sojiro caught her before she could hit the ground and help her to her
無理
feet.
するな。で、あいつは知り合いか？
He looked back at the eerie shadow 30 feet away as it finished retracting its arm.
そうね。似たようなやつとは命をせめぎ合った仲よ。
Aoko grabbed her lower back as she answered. A searing pain shot through her.
痛いっちゃ痛いけど。
It did something to you, though.
あれだけ絶好の奇襲をしておいて。それともこの距離じゃ当たっても致命傷にならない。なんてあるわけないか。何か別の意味があると見るべき。
It's here for Shizuki. Aoko tried to steady her breathing as she assessed the damage under her back. Pain was quick to fade and her breathing returned to normal. For the time being, her motor functions were no longer hindered, which meant the real damage was elsewhere.
青崎、あれ。
分かってるわ。黙ってて。
Blue light glowed across the gloom. The magical energy generated by her breathing was accumulating in her right arm. If magical energy was the fuel, the formula was the igniter. For Aoko, this was little more than a reenactment of 2 evenings ago. Next time the puppet extended its arm, Aoko would fire a magic bullet as fast as she could. A battle at approximately 30 feet. As long as Aoko could secure a 2-second window, she could create a counterattack to end their duel. It made its move. With its head tilted down, there was no expression to be seen, and in the darkness, its apparent age was impossible to make out. The two humans, the puppet was not dissimilar to a faceless ghost. Its left arm slowly came up with a grinding sound. Its movements were dull, as if the joints were rusty. The right arm, which had been extended earlier, hung at its side. Though the puppet's mouth was hidden by its long locks, the senses was that it was smiling.
さっきと用途が違う。あれが本命。しずきくん、どいて。
Oh, she actually... She threw herself into Sojiro and extended her hand. Its arm extended at that very moment. The timing was impeccable. In a single second, Aoko's snap bullet scored a direct hit on the puppet's arm, throwing off its trajectory and sending it crashing into the puppet's body with a violent expression. Or at least, that is what would have happened had the magic formula been invoked. Did it use seal magic on her? She barely avoided being struck once again. When her magecraft failed, her intuition took over. She just managed to get away.
やられた。最初のはそういうことか。
Okay, it just read her. Interesting. She clenched her teeth in frustration, her thoughts racing a mile a minute. Fight or flight? It only had one arm left, which would take time to retract. This is the best shot Aoko had at defeating it. If she could evade the right arm just a fraction, she could get close enough to...
Solitare puteris inferis. Ictius mes obitus dies, et mes nativus dies. Teobeam.
A crackle echoed through the corridor. The poetic murmurs contained enough magical energy for a mage to perceive. The verse itself was Latin, but it contained hints of the language of curses, Gander. Originally, they were words meant to curse a hated adversary. However,
Mea animae mortalis, otem eftuera negata sunt. Manes sum, animam definire ambiguum est. Teode et am, conveniamus insomnio ipso.
huh. Puppet was directing the word at itself. So is it... Huh. Verses beget curses. The victim calls down a curse on the assailant, creating a vicious cycle of negativity. The incantation was meant to do just that. However, this was ultimately a one-puppet show. An unprecedented source of power akin to auto-intoxication. As unbelievable as it seemed, the cycle of curses had been turned into a perpetual motion device.
何それ。レベル高すぎじゃない。
Yeah, it's gonna curse you, because lol, it can. Aoko abandoned the idea of digging her heels in. It was time to flee, with all due haste.
何してんの？あんたも来る！
She grabbed Sojo's hand and ran as fast as she could, deeper into the realm of mirrors. Oh no, we're going to like the 3rd floor, right? The crackling voice continued its murmuring behind them. Now we're together, going to the 3rd floor. What a twist.
Proximi mich negligentes ferunt. Omnes nos peccantes fims. Et omnes nos edem fims. Omnes nos peccatores sums. Venit domum meum.
Well, that's a
Lut
curse.
simile somnium.
God damn.
Et pulvere simile quotidianum. Corruprebo.
Corruprivo.
Te judico.
Death be upon you. That's creepy, man. That shit is spooking me out. Aoko fought against the pain in her back as she ran through the mirrored corridor. She dragged Sojiro by the hand.
青崎、傷は？
別に背骨が痺れてる程度よ。内臓は平気だし、出血もないみたい。
She cursed inwardly at how much of a mess she felt, though. Unlike Sojiro, Aoko did not run into any transparent walls. Thanks not to superior sight, but rather preparation, she'd hammered the layout of the building into her memory.
平気ってわかるのか？
そりゃ自分の体だもの。身体管理は基礎中の基礎よ。
Aoko's matter-of-fact answer contrasted with Sojiro's nervous questioning. The corridor grew shorter with each and every turn. At first, they were able to advance in a straight line for about 100 feet at a time, but by now, they were forced to turn a corner every 50 feet or so.
あいつはあの夜の？
多分ね。同じタイプだと思う。貴重なオートマタを惜しげもなく使い捨てるなんて。
Sojiro furrowed his brows. He was grateful that she was answering his questions, but baffled by the strange words she was using.
青崎ストップ。もう随分走ったぞ。あいつは曲がり角一つ分向こうだ。少し休もう。
His words suggested that he was still concerned about her injuries. Aoko shook her head in irritation.
あの距離を狙ってくる相手に通路一つ分のリードは無意味よ。せめて二つ分に行くまで走るの。
Sojiro nodded. With that matter settled, he asked,
なんで俺を連れて行ってるんだ？
Yeah, you could have, if your goal was to kill me.
逃げられたくないからじゃない、バカ。
Oh, because I have to do it myself. Yeah, because Sojiro could totally get away. Answering curtly, Aoko glared at her naive prey. The two of them headed for the next corner. Their legs began to slow as they rounded one more. Aoko rubbed her back as she tried to catch her breath. Though Aoko had insisted that she was fine, it appeared to have been bravado. Even the usually clueless Sojiro felt the desperation they were in. He stood behind Aoko with his arms folded. While they had a moment, he tried to make sense of everything. First, Aoko had nearly killed him. Though he was saved at the last possible second, it was by the strange, stretchy woman Aoko had burned to ashes 2 nights prior. He could barely make it out that night, but he considered it a her because it looked female. The woman's attack wounded Aoko's back and forced her to flee. Aoko had taken Sojiro with her, claiming that the reason she did so was to prevent her prey from escaping. In other words...
青崎はまだ諦めて
Yeah,
ない
he's like, you're gonna kill me still? Why though?
当たり前よ。あんなやつ、仮に2体と半分始末しても、あんた用の余力は残せるわ。
Uh-huh, yeah, sure. Her tone was sharp, but even Sojiro could see that she was struggling to stay confident. The damage to her body was too much to afford her any optimism. Still, the fury in her eyes refused to accept her circumstances.
中がところどころショートしてる。あの右腕は回路を
Yeah, he
混
used
戦
like
させる
still
邪魔になって
magic
る
on her. Though the proper response would have been for her to tremble in fear, she did nothing but shake her fists in anger. Disruption of formulae was only supposed to work on absolute beginners. If it had been her roommate, the arm would have been repelled the instant it hit her, and the attacker's circuits burned out rather than her own. Attempting to establish a link to the magic circuits of another mage was like presenting your heart on a silver platter. It would be of no use in a battle against a superior mage. And yet her adversary had been designed to do just that. Coupled with the attacks on the areas of Misaki under Aoko's jurisdiction, these last few weeks it was clear a statement from the enemy who had revealed itself as a fellow mage 2 days ago. In other words, the puppet saw Aoko as no threat at all. Yeah, that's gotta wound the pride.
敵ながら正確な判断だこと。
While she was still angry, the whirlwind of emotions within her started to fade. Her face was that of a hunter far beyond her years.
なんか俺の時より真剣だな。
まあね、あんたの時は遊びが入ってたし。
Sojo was not sure whether to be happy or sad at that.
わからないことだらけで何を聞いていいかわからないんだけど、一つだけいいか。
Aoko didn't respond. Her eyes were focused on the darkness before them. Silence was heavy, and the darkness was like a noose closing in on them. Sojiro continued in spite of her indifference.
青崎はあいつも殺すのか。
A stillness fell over them. It was as if the gloom was pulling them in. I feel like that's a silly question, but... No response. Their breathing was the only sound echoing in the dim corridor. There stood Sojiro, forcing her to confront her sins, and the magician girl who continued to ignore them. They spent a few seconds, seemingly frozen in time.
そう。それがあなたのキーワードみたいね。
Yeah. Even if it's an automaton. So there's like, killing is wrong! So he's got like better morals than I do, for sure. Aoko whispered in a lifeless tone. Her sigh was tinged with both resignation and contempt.
何？
独り言よ、忘れて。それと、言っとくけど、あいつは人間じゃないわ。信じられないだろうけど、自分の意志で動く人形なの。この前のも、今のやつもね。
Sojiro nodded as he processed the information. Not only did he not doubt her story, but he seemed to have accepted it at face value.
なんか落ち着いてるわね、あなた。
まさかもう何が何だかわからないから、
He's like, I've been
あまり考えないことにし
exposed
てる
to
だけ
way
だ。
too much shit, so I'm just gonna like roll with it.
ただ人形に関しては別にどうということはない。
もしかして、他でも自動人形を見たことあるとか？
都会の人形ってああいうものじゃないのか？
What do you mean, Sojiro? I love it when Aoko freaks out like that. She barely stopped herself from falling to her knees. Of course, how could she have forgotten? She was dealing with a bona fide natural-born moron. As a student who transferred from the isolation of the mountains like an endangered species, his utter lack of common sense rendered anything miraculous as mundane. If automobiles were moving husks of metal, then moving puppets are nothing to write home about. Wait, that meant... To him, the incident from the other night hadn't been extraordinary at all. Oops! He might have even assumed it was an everyday occurrence in the city.
参った。いっぺん頭の中覗いてみたいっていうか、ほんと、ここまで来ると感心するわ。調子が狂うのも当然だった。普通は私に襲われた時点でもっと違う反応をするはずなのに。
Have you finally decided I'm not worth killing? Like, do you really think?
化け物とか、お化けとかさ。でもあなたにとっては、そういうこともある。で済まされてたわけなんだ。なんかバカみたいね、私。
Yeah, seriously, honestly. The strained face returned to normal for a moment. It hit her. There had been another way to handle this without anyone getting hurt. The damage had already been done. There were no do-overs in life, nor should there be. Her own mistaken assumptions had sent that situation spiraling out of control. Now that Sojiro was involved, she had to make sure that her secret was safe with him. Even if there had been another, better option, that ship had sailed. Human relationships were ultimately driven by mutual misunderstandings. They were like tapestries woven from mismatched intentions. Nice, so she's like, alright, I'll keep him alive. I guess. Break time was over. There stood Aoko Azaki and Sojiro Shizuki. Their first ever idle conversation had come to an end. Not that they had a choice in the matter. It was the jarring murmuring from around the corner that cut it short.
Nemo mev nus meminit, vidroit extinct sest. Initio eraberamos dom rebimus dolores sunt. Nemo adiuvat.
Bro, why are you so edgy? Why are you so edgy, man? That shit is cringe. The enemy was just around the corner, visible in the mirrors parallel to it.
悠長に話してる場合じゃないわね。とにかく今は距離を。
Oh my god, truth-seeking orbs! In contrast to Aoko's elegant blues, its lights were a malicious red.
感動打ち。
Gander shots! Oh god, they're like ping-pong balls. There's a momentary flash of light before she even extended her arm. But the instant she saw the enemy, her dormant feelings erupted once more.
さっきから邪魔なのよ。
Okay, that is so cool. She channeled all her pent-up anger and shunted it into her right arm. The fog that filled the corridor was no magical weaving, but rather a barrier of raw energy. It was equivalent to setting ablaze 3 buckets of gasoline to create a wall of fire in the hope it would stop an arrow in flight. If the puppet had attacked with its arm, it could have pierced such a wall easily, but because it had loosed curses with no definite form, the wall of energy repelled the attack. While it was a huge waste of magical energy, it was the only means Aoko had to protect herself at that very moment. Unfortunately, its protection was reserved for Aoko alone. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Did he get cursed? Sojiro held the sand to his mouth. While the curse had been weakened to the point where Aoko could no longer feel it, it had plenty of effect on Sojiro, who was not a mage. As if it understood this fact, the puppet turned its gaze from Aoko to the unanticipated human behind her. Oh, nice. Now we have to have Aoko protect us. That is a big turn of events. I'm loving this. This is great. Enraged, she swung her arm forward once again. Blue light formed a wall to block the Gander for a scant few seconds. It was enough of an opening to exploit. So as Aoko was forming the wall, the puppet pointed its right arm at her face and...
関係あるみたいだから逃げるぞ。
Before the rocket of death could be fired, Sojiro scooped her up into his arms. Dude! Oh my god, what is it with Type Moon protagonists being so freaking cool? How he mustered the strength to do so was a mystery, but he turned his back on the puppet and took off running. He was a nimble sprinter, resembling a deer leaping across obstacles. This is like a Kotomi no Kirei moment with Ilya. Sojiro rounded 2 more corners, ignored whatever complaints Aoko was making, and eventually stopped in the middle of the 2nd floor. He set her down.
よし、ここまで来れば少しは休めるな。
Sojiro's shoulders heaved as he caught his breath. As light as she was, running while carrying someone else would make anyone winded. He looked up at him in incomprehension.
こんな体力あったのに、なんで?
Because he didn't have anyone to protect. It made no sense to her. If he had the stamina to pick her up and run, surely he could have stood up and escaped when he had been downed earlier.
ああ、あの時は諦めてたから。
Yeah, exactly. He gave up. He just said, ah, right, it's over. His words were unfiltered as ever, though right then, fighting for their lives, he lacked some of his usual absent-mindedness.
諦めてたって。
さあ、忘れた、そんなことは。
Damn! I just like how, yeah, like they said unfiltered and just serious he can be. But he may have turned away because he regretted saying it aloud. His words spoke volumes. For some reason, it pained Aoko to see him like that.
それより青崎、唐突に気分が悪い
Yeah,
の
the
が。
curse is starting to, yeah.
あの赤い光も、その。
ええ、魔術の類よ。岩洞打ちって言ってね。北欧の呪詛の一つ。魔術回路のある私には効かないけど。
Please tell me somehow this is gonna give
抵
him
抗のない
magic
あなたに
powers.
効果てきめんみたいね。
I'm just kidding. I don't know if I want him to have magic powers, but I do want him to have some fighting potential, maybe?
なんだ、青崎には効かないのか。じゃあ、危ないのはあの腕だけだな。
Aoko had no idea why he was relieved, but she gritted her teeth and fought down the urge to snap at him. There was no use in yelling at a time like this. Above all, she felt that it would have been petty and extreme to voice her annoyance right now.
そうね。注意するのは伸ばしてくる腕だけ。大した相手じゃないわ。
This time it was not false bravado. Such an enemy would normally be a breeze for Aoko Hazaki. But her shameful negligence had led to the disruption of her magic circuits, making her even less formidable than her enemy. At this point, Aoko had no way of attacking. The only option left to her was to wait for it to expend all of its magical energy, but its perpetual curse mechanism made that a non-starter. This game of tag would not end until one of them was dead. He realized that she was in the same position she had cornered Sojiro in earlier. He glanced at her right arm. She could not imagine how she had gotten into such a mess with her magical energy at more than half of its capacity. This had to be karma for having enjoyed toying with Sojiro earlier. Maybe there's a god after all. Wow. For a mage to say that, that's some irony. She grumbled under her breath as she shifted her focus. She had the fuel for the fire, but not the igniter. And that killing machine would chase her until the end of time if need be. What she should do next was blindingly clear. She had to get back to normal.
Aozaki.
ごめん、考え事してた。確か。よし、合ってる。しずきくん、そこに横道あるのわかる？
Aoko pointed, but he could see nothing but the walls of the corridor. For one thing, the floor had nothing but left turns, and Aoko was pointing to the right.
2階は中心まで行くと1階に降りる階段があるんだけど、それは私が壊したから使えないの。けど、ここの作りも意地が悪くてね。よく見れば、右に曲がる通路もあるのよ。あとは注意して探せば、1階の階段までショートカットできる。悪いけど、一人で行って。
Aoko turned her back to Sojiro and started walking in the opposite direction of the escape route and down the long corridor toward the puppet in pursuit.
あいつは無差別だから、ここで壊さないといけない。魔術師は魔術師同士で争うのはいいんだけど、
it is forbidden.
みだりに一般人に手を出しちゃいけないって決まりがあるの。
We're gonna have another gas leak situation.
あいつの目的は私のわけだし、結果がどうあれ。
If Aoko won, the puppet would be destroyed. If Aoko lost, its objective would be complete and it would shut down. Either way, them going their separate ways would mean Sojiro survived. This is what Aoko meant, though she explained it as if the events were happening to two totally different people.
運が良ければ入り口までたどり着けるわ。それじゃあ、また明日ね。
Even Sojiro could tell she was just trying to act tough. But she had already disappeared around the corner by the time he thought to stop her. So we're gonna switch perspectives, right?
さて。
Okay, this is gonna be a dope fight, but I want Shizuki to pop back in, go full shonen, and have him, like, help deal the final blow with Aozaki at the same time. That would be pog. Mentally, Aoko bemoaned the disaster she was in. The quality of this puppet was on a completely different level compared to the one from the Peak Park 2 days ago. An auto-incanting perpetual motion machine was a rarity in and of itself, but this puppet was also equipped for battle with its extending arms and gander-projecting crystalline eyes. It was a first-class product that, if put on the market, would sell for hundreds of millions of yen. Although, that was only when factoring in its value as an antique. For the purposes of combat, it would have made more sense to mobilize a significantly less expensive familiar. To use such a precious commodity as a tool for murder marked this puppet's master as a completely different breed of crazy from the enemies she had faced up until now. So I wonder if, like, the main villain of this game, if we've met them before, like if it was one of the women that talked to Shizuki or not. Or if we have yet to meet them. The sound of a crackling music box filled the air. The automata, animated by its own curses, approached. The corridor measured approximately 30 feet in length. Aoko lay in wait around a corner further down the hall, anticipating the puppet's appearance. This was not to buy Sojiro time to escape, far from it. Aoko concluded that she couldn't make a break for it under the current circumstances. Even if she did try to escape and by some miracle made it out of the House of Mirrors, that was as far as she would go. Outside with no cover, Aoko would quickly be overtaken and skewered from behind. As long as her magecraft was disabled, escape was impossible. Instead, she chose to force the enemy back. Her situation was not the most favorable, but neither was the puppet's. Though this narrow hall gave Aoko no place to run, it is, in turn, prevented the puppet from reaching its full speed. That was the weak point of this machine. Automata of its era had a tendency to struggle with minute changes in speed. Freeze. Oh. Ass moment. She flowed energy into her shorted circuits. Her blood flow and magical energy supply were unstable. It would be difficult to construct a formula in this state. All she could do was harden her right arm by imbuing it with as much energy as she could. Doing so turned her arm into an improvised weapon like a hammer or bat. Assuming oh man, this is a Shiro moment! She could manage to get into close combat range. This was the best she could do. All she needed now was a plan of attack. The question wasn't what weapon to use, but how to use the weapon she had. The simplest way would be able to use the mirror's reflection to hide and then rush the puppet from its blind spot. Except for one major problem. It did not have a sense of sight in the first place. The puppet's view of the world around it did not seem from visual feedback, but from mapping the topography of its surroundings. In theory, it was the same as a bat's echolocation. The environment could be measured based on the emission and return of high-frequency sound waves. Those chants served as sensor pulses. As far as the puppet was concerned, the mirrors were no better than transparent panes, making even the thought of an ambush laughable.
近づけば近づくほどよりリアルに察知される。本当は遠距離からの狙撃が最適なんだけど、ガンドを撃ってくるなら。
Gander was Scandinavian origin, and considering its simplicity, highly versatile. It was most effective at impairing a target's health by pointing a finger. As a single-action magecraft, it was limited to only causing illness, but there's a secret technique said to be the greatest mastery of the Gander shot. The Fin shot. It could do more than cause simple illness. It was a deadly curse that could stop the heart. The wound on her back set her nerves on fire. An unarmed girl and a deadly automaton. It was clear that she was one destined for death. She considered her slim chances of survival when... Oh my god, that is creepy. A vision sent chills down her spine. Quietly using everything she could to clamp down on the feeling, Aoko faced her all too familiar vision. She clenched her teeth to keep them from making a deafening clatter. But there, the sensation of fingers crawling up her neck behind her, the specter stared and laughed. This alone made Aoko want to bolt. On top of it all, when Aoko tried to mentally stimulate the coming fight, she estimated a 2 in 10 chance of dying in the first 5 seconds. 20%. At times her predictions were harsher than reality. If Aoko fought the puppet 10 times, she would die twice. She could not stop herself from visualizing her own corpse. She imagined herself collapsing, crumpling under the puppet's curse, her eyeballs swollen like a blowfish, blood and other fluids oozing from every body orifice. 1 in 5, 1 in 5, 1 in 5. 1 in 10 chance of death was bad enough, but 1 in 5? It drove her crazy. Aoko forced down her heart as it tried to escape from her mouth. Taking in a deep breath, she peered at her own reflection. There we go. Ooh, more lore? She thought back to that white night half a year ago. This, she decided, was nothing compared to that. 6 months ago, at the Kuonji estate, the Hound of White Roses, the Wander Snatch, that appeared from within the thick fog, had killed Aoko 100 times out of 10. Oh, it was that bad, huh?
Mea animae brutalis, autem mea futura necada sunt. Manes sum, animam definire ambiguum est.
Dark curse shattered Ako's daydream. It was 30 feet away. The puppet rounded the corner. Either side stood in the shadows, their forms indistinct. How does Wander Snatch sound familiar to me? The puppet gave no warning. Without preamble, it swiftly fired a Gander barrage. Just as Aoko planned, the curses fizzled out as they hit her mist-like barrier of magical energy. Protection would only last a few seconds, giving her just enough time to...
Kai!
Its stretchable spear sprang toward Aoko's face.
Bingo!
The lethal weapon grazed her cheek. All her experience analyzing puppet attack patterns gave her the wherewithal to evade the attack by a hair's breadth. It was one thing if a puppeteer were pulling the strings, but autonomous dolls had their limitations. Aoko had bet everything on this killing machine following a predefined template. The puppet would use a given attack for a given range, and she could adjust her tactics to that.
いける。このまま。
That's a risk, but an ingenious tactic. I like it. Before its arm had a chance to fully retract, she charged the puppet. It was a risky gamble, but her overall chances were slim to begin with. Scales tipped in her favor. If her predictions were correct, there were 2 ways she would die. One was from a fin shot fired at that range. Oh wow, that is a, oh! And the other was if the puppet's attack pattern was beyond her ability to foresee. It's an instantaneous mass transfer, otherwise known as mass displacement. Immediately after Aoko dodged the puppet's arm, something smashed into her abdomen. Oh. It was way too advanced for her to predict. The head-on collision from its shoulder felt like a rocket, but where had the ability to propel itself come from? Puppets like this were not built to have the ability to jet around like that. Doing everything in her power to stay conscious in spite of the pain, Aoko could just make out what had happened.
推進力じゃなくて牽引力。
It was pulled? That's... So does it have some sort of intelligence? Damn, that is... That's really smart.
そんなのありか。
Yeah, how could you have anticipated that? You couldn't have. Swallowing her surprise, she hastily pulled herself back up. Her abdomen, specifically her diaphragm, had been dealt a Oh! Ow! A significant blow. The attack left her disoriented. Thankfully, the puppet was surprisingly lightweight. Her bones and organs were intact, and she had sustained no life-threatening damage. She was having a hard time breathing, however. She was shaken, though she managed to keep her calm. In another 2 seconds, she'd be back on her feet. No, that was 2 seconds too long. She told herself to calm down, that she was already calm. She'd only briefly lost her bearings. She was fine. She could recover her breath and her vision later if only her body would move.
Intellectus non necessaris est. Esquesca. O nostro rascente abulat fit. Ratio fix tantum est.
L plus right ratio from the automaton. Above her, Aoko could hear the warped noise of a powerful force.
動け。でもどっちに行けば。
She could once more feel the touch of death.
E salvatio. E salvatio. E salvatio.
The puppet was so close that Aoko could reach out and touch it. That also meant that it could reach out and kill Aoko.
こいつの右腕の死角に入れる。
By intuition alone, Aoko rolled over to the puppet's right flank. Its arm was still embedded within the wall. From here, it could not attack. She had made the right decision and her dizziness faded.
Intellectus non necessaris est. Esquescat. O nostro rascente abulat fit. Ratio fix tantum est. Lores intimicre buron fit.
Aoko pulled herself back up. It was her turn. This thing is honestly terrifying. Like, it genuinely scares me. Oh! I hate it. I hate it. It was only an instant. Within this labyrinth of mirrors, she saw an image of herself. Oh, yeah? Are you just that... Are you that automaton following orders?
E salvatio.
A blinding, brilliant light flashed. Lacerations appeared across the walls. At the last moment, Aoko managed to thicken the magical energy running through her veins into a primitive form of magecraft resistance. Just barely saved her life from what must have been the puppet's ace in the hole. The puppet bore a striking resemblance to Aoko. This powerful curse was not satisfied with stopping Aoko's heart, but destroying her entire being. Okay, this is okay, so I was going to mention earlier that it did look like her. I just never said anything because I don't know why I didn't say anything, but I can't really think of any good theories that don't just sound like a crackhead theory. The only thing I can really think of is that maybe... Well, is her grandfather still alive? I don't remember. Someone who built it definitely has it out for Aoko, or is using it to somehow train her, or just something. Like, I don't see the bigger picture yet. Aoko did not even have the time to be shocked. This is her chance for a counterattack. The puppet's balance was unsteady, its right arm still embedded in the wall. Aoko prepared to give its defenseless body a strong kick, but her knees buckled and she collapsed into the heap on the floor. Damn it, I should have been paying attention more to the Latin. Maybe it would have given me a clearer understanding of Aoko's character more. Like her past? A sudden nausea and lightheadedness overcame Aoko. Her body temperature began to rapidly lower. Oh, that... Yeah, this thing has a clear intelligence. She noticed too late. The puppet's curses circled the hall. Curse chant that the puppet used as a source of power doubled as a defense mechanism, crippling those who drew near with illness. She bore the full brunt the entire time she was in close proximity to it. Although Aoko had magic circuits, she was succumbing just as Sojiro had. Languidly, she forced her deteriorating body to jump back. With all the energy she could muster, she forced her way past the exhaustion caused by the curse. However, Aoko's blood pressure took a steep nosedive, not from the curse-induced anemia, but from what appeared in front of her. They stood in perfect harmony. In front of Aoko was the automata that shared her face, its left arm held out like an arrow. The deadly weapon shot forward and honed in on her heart. The fin shot? Then a moment before it made contact. Yes! Oh, yeah! Baby, it's Sojiro time! The moment she heard that fearless voice completely out of place in the storm of violence, Aoko's body was pulled forcefully to one side. Once again, the extending arm cut through empty air. While the puppet quickly retracted its left arm, Sojiro took the brief opportunity to take Aoko by the hand and flee at full speed. Sojiro ran through the corridor as fast as he could, only stopping when he had put enough distance between them and the puppet.
考えてみると
Though he had saved her, she looked angry rather than grateful. Did not keep Sojiro from saying his piece. This did not keep Sojiro from saying his piece. Of course he's gonna say it.
明日はどうも忙しいみたいなんだ
In other words, let's finish this today. A rather awkward proposal. Oh my god, he's like, you see, I got work, I gotta go the swimming thing again. I mean, I gotta learn how to fucking swim. I got like fucking 5 essays to do, you know, man. It's gonna be busy. Let's just finish this up today. Aoko remained silent. She was also rather angry. Not that she could not figure out what made him tick, nor because he'd returned after escaping, not even because he was spouting his typically airheaded lines. It was, she supposed, that instant. The fact that when he grabbed her hand, her mind had gone completely blank. Aoko found it unforgivable. Which beckoned the response.
あなた、正気?
In the heat of the moment, she blurted it before she could stop herself.
それとも自殺願望でもあったわけ？私もあいつも、あんたなんか殺す対象に過ぎないのよ。少なくとも、恩を売る相手じゃない。言っとくけど、私、助けられたぐらいで曲がる信念は持ち合わせていないから。
Sojiro nodded, clearly unperturbed.
青崎がそんな可愛らしいもんじゃないのはこの夜だけで骨身に染みてるよ
She found herself slightly offended.
けど君は勘違いをしてるから少し正そうあいつの狙いは青崎だけじゃない君だけじゃなく
Yeah,
俺も殺す気だと思う
which is weird. It's really weird. She was having none of it. Her eyes shot daggers his way.
話は最後まで聞くどうしてかっていうと1階の入り口あるだろあの細長い通路なんでかあそこから先に進めないんだ逃げたくても逃げ出せなくて仕方なく戻ってきた
So, maybe it did intend to kill both parties. Ako's eyes widened ever so slightly in amazement. She felt admiration rather than shock that her enemy would go to such lengths.
それに さっきので完全に敵扱いされた。あの人形、こっちをじろっと睨んできたし。いや、一瞬でよく見えなかったけど、生きた心地しなかったな。青崎も気をつけた方がいい。多分よっぽど怖い顔をしているに違いないぞ、あれ。
それはご親切にどうも。
Gee, thanks.
うん。なんでこれはもう他人事じゃないんだ。
He's I mean, come on. He's gonna get killed twice by the same face. I know that face.
青崎と人形。結論として、どっちが勝っても俺は殺されてしまうんじゃないか。
Damn, it's like I'm a dead man either way, man. So,
そうね。そこまでやってるなら、目撃者は消すでしょうね。私みたいに。
だろ？でも、俺はあいつには殺されたくない。
Yeah, you're the only one who's deserving enough to kill me. Just, you know, for a moment.
え
His words were decisive. As Aoko looked up at him, she could swear he was trying to encourage her. It was then that she realized Sojiro was looking even worse than before the curse.
ちょっと待って。大丈夫なのあなた。
まあ、醤油を一升瓶飲むよりはマシではないかと。
What an analogy. He tried to make light of the situation, but his forehead was clearly drenched in sweat.
そうか。さっき人形に近づいたから。
Yeah, with all the curse surrounded, and then, like, from earlier, like, dudes... How could he possibly be able to withstand a curse that made even Aoko nauseous? She bit her lip, annoyed at herself for not noticing this earlier. Sojiro was such an airhead that she hadn't even paused to consider his plight.
下で隠れていようとか思わなかったの？その方がどう考えても安全でしょ？
You really could not understand him at all.
それは青崎が言うセリフじゃないな。
Yeah, definitely, I could see that.
でもまあ、長話をしている時間もない。そろそろ追いついてくる頃だ。
Turned to look down the corridor. The crackling sounds of a music box could be heard creeping forth from the darkness.
さっき1階にいて考えたんだ。君がやられても俺は殺される。なら、まず奴をどうにかするべきだ。
あなた、何が言いたいの？
She asked a question to which she already knew the answer. She did it to put him to the test. If he wavered even a little, she would have killed him where he stood. Wow.
提案。あいつをやっつけるのに協力したら、俺のことは見逃してくれる。
Oh my god. Sojiro's enthusiasm is just... It's so... I love him, man. I love this dude.
助けられたぐらいじゃ信念は曲げないって言ったでしょ？それに、あなたに何ができるっていうの？
それは青崎が考えてくれ。得意だろ、そういうの。
The commander at the overall picture was responsible for delegating roles to their teammates. It was futile to depend on someone who was unable to grasp the situation or evaluate the enemy's strengths. Sojiro was proud to share that he knew this. He spoke the truth. Aoko was the only one who knew both Sojiro and the automata. That was why he pointed out following her orders to the best of his ability was the only thing he could do. It may have seemed as though Sojiro had surrendered his capacity for self-thought, but accepting that he was helpless was, in fact, giving Aoko his complete trust.
じゃあ私の指示に 100% 従うってこと？
ああ。それにこれは恩とか義理の話じゃない。一人だと分が悪いから二人でかかるだけだ。善意でも好意でもない。取引って言わないか、こういうの。
Dang, I love that, honestly. That's cool. His eyes sparkle as if this was bartering in its truest form.
まったく。
This child must have learned that from Tobimaru. Good thought. Though she refused to let him see it, as she smiled inwardly. Gotten the best of her just now. Sure, he had gotten the best of her just now, but there was times when defeat was not the worst outcome in the world.
労働と報酬ってわけね。それなら理にかなってる。うん。言いたくないけど。
He relaxed her shoulders and sighed. Her face cracked into a wicked grin as if her fears had suddenly washed away.
それ、結構私の好みよ。
Now this is poggers! Aoko repaid Sojiro's trust in equal measure.
結構きついかもね。あなたの役目。
It is gonna be tough, you know? It's gonna be pretty freaking tough. So actually, I'm gonna go ahead and end the episode here. I know that's a big cut for everybody. It's even a cut for me. But my voice is actually about to die. It's almost 3 a.m. and, well, not even close to 3. It's like 2:15. Night of the Witches 5? Wow, this is a long chapter, but I dig it. This is probably like one of the best chapters so far. But regardless, regarding Tsukihime, I've had like equal measure of people saying to play the original or the remake, and it's tough. I don't know which, to be honest with you. I still have to make the decision, but I don't have to decide yet. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode of Witch on the Holy Night. I sure did. Sojiro is just a great character. I'm really interested in to see what the hell this automaton is, who created it, and for what purpose. Why does it look like Aoko? What is Aoko's deal? What is Alice doing during all of this, and where does she come into play? Development between these two's relationship, I think it's still going to end up being a platonic thing by the end of the game, just a feeling. It's still really sweet. I do enjoy that a lot. And if you have any more opinions on the Tsukihime stuff, or just about the game in general, or you have anything else to say, you can comment them down below. I do read everything, even if I don't respond to it. I do read them, so thank you for that. And I just want to let you know that whether it's morning, evening, day, or night, be sure to stay safe and take care out there, my fellows. And if you haven't done so already, please be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe, because I think like 40% of people who watch aren't subscribed, which is actually a pretty good ratio. But I'd prefer if more people did subscribe, so you guys can keep up to date with me actually uploading now. But yeah, take care everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and rest my voice and then go hit the sack. I don't have anything else to say. Man, I need to get witty again. I can't think of anything funny besides like balls. So everyone have a good balls. Ha ha ha. Funny.